We hope you have enjoyed our first ever virtual Amache pilgrimage. Although we can't be together physically, thank you for engaging with Amache in new ways, meeting new people, and strengthening ties. Even when we hold in-person events in the future, we think that virtual events will likely play an important role in connecting people who are unable to attend. We look forward to being all together again when it's safe to do so.
As much as I missed meeting people in person, it was wonderful to connect with people online. Obviously, this is a way to engage people who are unable to attend the in-person pilgrimage. I hope we all find ways to stay connected, both virtually and in person in the future.
I totally agree, Carlene. So we'll close out this weekend's events with a showcase of the newest reconstruction on the site. The new Honor Roll Memorial constructed by Mr. John Hopper, Mr. Ian DeBono, Mr. Smith and his agriculture students, and the students of the Amache Preservation Society. The kiosk is placed at the entrance to the site and lists the names of those from Amache who served in the military from 1942 through 1945. Of all of the incarceration sites, Amache had the highest percentage of people who served in the military, including in the segregated Japanese American 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the 100th Infantry Battalion, the Military Intelligence Service, or the MIS, Women's Army Corps, and the Nurses Army Corps. It's especially fitting that you'll be seeing this kiosk for the first time this weekend, just one weekend after the first day of the issue of the Go for Broke postage stamp honoring the Japanese American soldiers of World War II. Let's join the APS now for some first looks at the new Honor Roll kiosk.
My name is Brandon Gonzalez, and I am with the Amache Preservation Society at Grenada High School. Today, I am here in front of the newest addition to the Amache Memorials, and it is the kiosk that was made back in the 1940s to recognize the people that enlisted in the military. It was just recently put here and made by G5 Imprints, which is a family business of mine. And so this is the original honor roll, which has all of the names that were put on here. And as you can see, there's even little paneling, which is the artwork for the side of it. Me and my fellow classmates all copied down names so that we could put it into the computer to render all of these and put them up on the kiosk. It includes men and women. It's anybody who enlisted or volunteered to help with any part of the war. If you see there's asterisks here and highlighted in blue, that means that these people were killed in action. There was a man over here who received the Medal of Honor. His name was Kiyoshi Muranaga, and he's the only Medal of Honor recipient at Amache. So I feel like it was very important to signify that these people enlisted in the military, because they didn't necessarily have to enlist, but they showed their patriotism by helping out with a country that wrongly imprisoned and kind of just put them away into a camp. It's pretty cool that I was able to kind of remember some of the names that were put onto this, because I helped my family make these panels. And so yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of a connection there.
We're so lucky to have the APS working with our community. to make sure all the details were correct from the historic color photos, tracking down the original list of names from historical documents, and consulting with former incarcerees. One person who remembered the original kiosk vividly is Min Tonai. He was a teenager at Amache and went on to serve in the Korean War. He's also been instrumental in much of the preservation of Amache, as he's been one of the key leaders of the original Amache Historical Society and Amache reunions. Let's now turn to Min for his reflections on Amache, the honor roll kiosk, and being a veteran.
Thank you, Carlene, for that wonderful introduction. And to all the attendees of this virtual pilgrimage, thank you. I really appreciate you taking an interest in Amache. I was asked to tell a little bit about my memories of Amache. I was 13 years old when I went to Amache and 16 when I left. Every morning when I would leave my barrack room, I could see the barbed wire fence and the guard tower. Our barrack was located right next to the fence, so it was a daily reminder of having to be a prisoner. Mess hall food was not always good. They once gave us rice and mayonnaise for lunch. The next time they served it, people refused to eat it, and they never served it again. There were 4 of us in Amache: my mother, my older sister Rumi, my younger brother Yutaka, and me. Unfortunately, my father was arrested on December 7th, and we didn't see him again until mid-1944, when he was finally released from the Santa Fe internment camp. When he joined us at Amache, I was shocked at his appearance. His hair had turned almost all white, and he was quite thin. He was also much quieter than he had been before. I went to pick up his suitcase to take to our room. It was really heavy. When I opened it, it was full of petrified wood and other rocks. I asked him, "Why do you have these rocks?" He laughed at me. He said he'd been collecting them at every prison camp he was in. I had joined the Boy Scouts at Santa Anita Assembly Center. Mr. Roy Uragami, who was a Boy Scout commissioner in Los Angeles, started Troop 179 at Amache. I was a first-class scout and the maybe senior patrol leader. Mr. Uragami had the camp authorities ship the drum and bugles to Amache, and we formed the Drum and Bugle Corps. We were short some bugles, so he got people to help pay for wartime plastic bugles that sounded horrible. The first year we were there, the sister of one of the scouts asked us if we wanted to learn to dance, so we learned camp style. From then on, whenever there was a dance, we went. Because so many of the scouts knew how to dance, a couple of the girls' clubs would always invite us. Eventually, our troop sponsored one, and we invited both those girls' clubs to our dance. We escorted all of them to and from the barracks. We were able to leave Amache to go to a closed CCC camp near Mancos, Colorado, to disassemble the barracks there and bring them back to Amache. After we were finished dismantling the barracks, we went to Mesa Verde to see the cliff dwellings. I was excited to go there because I remember seeing them in the National Geographics before the war. We returned to Amache, and the former CCC barracks were then reassembled as buildings for the motor pool. The Drum and Bugle Corps played at the dedication ceremony of the honor roll kiosk. I was proud of these guys who went into the service, but sad at realizing they had been killed. One of the men killed in action was our assistant scoutmaster, George Saito, whose younger brother Calvin was also killed in action. When the Korean War started, I was drafted into the Army. I was assigned to the 40th Division of the California National Guard and served on the front lines in Korea. Knowing the bravery and sacrifices of the soldiers of the 442nd, there was no way that I would allow myself to be a coward. I would rather die than be a coward. I'm extremely happy that the Amache Preservation Society, led by John Hopper, rebuilt the honor roll kiosk, since the original one was built by Amacheans during the war to honor the men who served and were killed on foreign soil. My hope for the future is for continued research into the life at Amache, and that it becomes more accessible to people so that something like the incarceration of Japanese American never happens again. Thank you once again for being part of this pilgrimage. I hope I have the opportunity to meet you in the future and that you all will be able to visit Amache soon.
It's always so amazing to hear Min's memories of Amache. They're so vivid and detailed. Next, we'll hear from another veteran, Ken Kitajima, who also served in the Korean War.
I'm Ken Kitajima from San Jose, California. I lived in Campbell, which is one of the suburbs of San Jose. As you know, San Jose is a very large city. It's the third largest city in California. And I have a lot of history in this state. I remember when Japan dropped the bomb on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. From that day on, I faced so much racism that I remember so clearly running home from school and being chased and being called a dirty Jap and so forth. But to make that history short, this continued on ever since December 7, 1941. In a way, I guess you can't blame the people who live here when they see the Japanese bomb one of their cities or army cabinet. During the period that President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 on February 19th, 1942, I was kind of glad to go to camp because I was so afraid of going to school. And I said, oh boy, I didn't know any better. Well, I go to camp, it's great, I don't have to go to school. So anyway, to make the story short, our family lost everything. And I felt sorry for my father who lost his ranch, his property, everything. And of course, we only got on the train with what we could carry. So I ended up in Pomona, and to make the story short, I ended up in Heart Mountain camp over there in Wyoming, Cody, Wyoming. And then we transferred after 6 months to Amache, Colorado, where I spent time going to school there and joined the Boy Scouts. And I lived in Block 10E, Building 11B, which is east of the camp, facing the Wolf River, which passed by close to the camp. I remember being in the Boy Scouts celebrating Memorial Day and so forth. And we also went to Mesa Verde National Park to tear down a CCC camp when I was a Boy Scout, and then we used the lumber to build further more barracks and buildings over here in Amache from the buildings we tore down by Durango, Colorado, Mancos, Colorado to be exact. I'm glad they put up the kiosk because me being a veteran during the Korean War, I spent 4 years, 1950 to 54, as a surgical nurse in the U.S. Air Force in Denver, Colorado, near Aurora, where the Air Force Base was. As a serviceman, I faced a lot of prejudice, you might say. Even as a serviceman with a U.S. uniform on, I faced prejudice. And they didn't call me Japs directly, but it was all hidden in there. And my Caucasian friends told me why they did certain things to me because I was Japanese, even though I was in a uniform. So they used to always support me, my Caucasian friend. But anyway, I remember that going to Texas and facing so much prejudice. It was something new to me. They called me outright. We don't serve Japs. When we went to a restaurant in Texas, and when I rode on the bus, they wouldn't let me sit down in the last 4 rows of the bus because it was saved for blacks. So that's how much prejudice there was against, even though you were in uniform. And so I have a strong feeling about being, making sure that people are honored who served during World War II, especially the Japanese who were prejudiced against and volunteered for the Army in the name of 442nd and the 100th Battalion from Hawaii, and combining together to form one task force. And they helped eventually in 1944. They helped save the Texas battalion that was trapped over there in France. And the Japanese regimental combat team lost hundreds of people in that effort. And they were never recognized for it until 1962, when the governor of Texas said, we recognize the good they did saving us, the Texas battalion, from annihilation. And in that respect, putting it all together, I see the importance of having that honor roll kiosk for all the Japanese and Japanese women who served during World War II under trying conditions. It's great that they set up this kiosk, and I want to see it personally again. I haven't seen the old one, but the new one looks beautiful. So anyway, I have great respect for it. I'm glad that John Hopper and the Presidential Society and those people put it up. Thank you very much.
Ken has also had such vivid memories as Min has. We're lucky to have him part of our community. Thanks to both Min and Ken for sharing their thoughts. Well, this concludes the first Amache virtual pilgrimage. As I look back over the past 3 days, I'm truly amazed by what the planning committee has assembled to tell the story of Amache from 1942 to 45. On a personal level, participating in this virtual pilgrimage has further reinforced what I learned as a pilgrim in 2016. In 2016, I realized that Amache was the beginning of my life as a toddler, that being an Amachean has strengthened my behavior. I assembled tools for survival, for after all, we were imprisoned. These tools, I believe, have given me the ability to face various challenges head on as an adult. And being a volunteer in the Amache Field School has also given me profound insight into who I am, who I've become, and yes, who I will be now and in the future. It's been a journey in which I've captured in my personal journal, digging for my roots. This year, instead of having only 1 day of pilgrimage, wow, we had 3 days. Awesome. Now it's time for the future generations to continue the legacy of those who lived in Amache during World War II. I hope too that everyone would agree that it was an enjoyable weekend. It's been an amazing pilgrimage.
I agree, Carlene. The work of the APS, the DU Amache Project, the Amache Historical Society, and annual Amache pilgrimages are prime examples of what community-based research and practice should be, working with all stakeholders in collaboration to address the needs of the community and ensure all voices are heard and affirmed. I saw this in practice during my time as an intern. Dr. Bonnie Clark ensured that her graduate and undergraduate students centered the voices of major stakeholders, specifically Amache incarcerees and descendants and the people of the town of Grenada. For many of her students, it's their first time learning about World War II Japanese American incarceration. As someone privileged to know this history through my grandparents' oral histories, it's beautiful to watch these students engage with the community and feel empowered to enact social change and prevent this history from repeating itself. The DU Amache Project, Amache Pilgrimage, Amache Historical Society, and Amache Preservation Society started because people were in conversation and community with each other. Conversation is the driving force behind preserving our collective memory and inspiring further action and solidarity. As a call to action for youth, young adults, and future generations, I challenge you all to reach out to someone you met this weekend. Ask them, what brought you to this pilgrimage? How are you connected to Amache? Where do we go from here? Share your stories, ask questions, and lean into community. World War II incarceration at Amache is not the only crime against humanity that has occurred on southeastern Colorado land. In 1864, the United States Army brutally killed and mutilated over 200 Cheyenne and Arapaho Native peoples in the Sand Creek Massacre. Today, we continue to see immigrant families unjustly separated from each other at our borders and are reckoning with this country's blatant history of anti-Blackness, police brutality, and racism. I hope after this weekend's gathering, you all feel inspired to be in conversation with those both similar to and different from you. Seek solidarity and understanding and speak out against injustice of all forms.
In the immediate future, if you haven't done so, please consider sending in your public comments to the National Park Service Special Resource Study by June 30th. Any additional testimony will help to make sure that Amache qualifies to become a new National Historic Site. We have lots of details on the amache.org website, or you can connect directly to the NPS project site.
You can also write to your members of Congress, both your representatives and senators, and ask them to sign on as co-sponsors for the Amache Historic Site Act. The National Parks Conservation Association has put together information to make it easy for you to take action. Please make sure to personalize your letters so it's clear that there are real people behind them.
Please also consider donating to the Amache Preservation Society via our Mighty Cause campaign. There is a limited number of commemorative gifts from the pilgrimage, including the very cool Amache origami paper that you might have seen in people's backgrounds. Your funds allow us to hold programs like the pilgrimage and fuel continued preservation activity.
And finally, if you'd like to keep in touch, consider joining the All Things Amache Facebook group or sign up for the Amache Historical Society 2 mailing list. Beyond just the Amache community, you can also get involved with other social justice movements, such as Suru for Solidarity. You can also call your representatives and urge the passage of H.R. 40, a congressional bill aiming to establish the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans. If passed, the Commission will examine enslavement and discrimination in the colonies and the United States from 1619 to the present and recommend appropriate remedies. As a Japanese American person whose family has seen the direct financial and, more important, psychological and emotional impact of redress and reparations, it's our collective duty to stand in solidarity with all those seeking reparations. To learn more and for support in accessing a calling script, reach out to organizations like Suru for Solidarity, Nikkei Progressives, and Nikkei for Civil Rights and Redress. Let's all do our part to shine a light on these injustices and make sure nothing like the Japanese American incarceration of World War II happens again.
Ricky, those were such inspirational words. We hope that future generations will keep the memory of Amache alive. Thank you all for joining us on this historic weekend for the very first Amache virtual pilgrimage.
Yes, thank you all so much. It's been a great experience. Our in-person pilgrimages always close with some form of beautiful entertainment by Japanese American artists and performers. We hope you enjoy a recorded version of this today as we bid you farewell. We hope to see you again next time. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. Thank you very much. Until next time.